And welcome to Access Iowa City, a program on the independent living and rehab movements in southeastern Iowa. Access Iowa City is brought to you by a generous contribution from the Noon Pilots Club of Johnson County in collaborations with the Extended Dream Foundation, Access Independence, and the Centers for Disability and Development, as well as the work from all the folks here at Public Access Television Channel 18. I'm Terry Cunningham, President of the Board of Directors of Access to Independence, Vice Chair of the Johnson County MHDS Planning Council, and an individual who's lived with a significant disability for over 41 years. Tonight we're pleased to have our friend Todd Lang back to finish up the three-part series it's turned into. Welcome, Todd.
Thank you, Terry.
Good to see you. And of course, my co-host, Keith Ruff.
Thank you, Terry.
Okay. As we last left, I think we had just gotten in a bit to the Office of Consumer Affairs. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure, Terry. So the Office of Consumer Affairs is contracted through the Department of Human Services here in the state, and we are a resource for people in recovery, be that mental health, substance use, or people with other disabilities. Currently, my organization, the Iowa Advocates for Mental Health Recovery, have been running the Office of Consumer Affairs since January of last year. So it's just been over a year and a half. And we provide resource and referral services. We do community education. We're involved with state level policy, most notably the Mental Health and Disabilities Services Redesign. And sometimes we do some mediation work for individuals, and we do this throughout the state of Iowa. And I'm the director, and I work with 5 part-time regional coordinators, and we use the 5 DHS service areas. So here in Iowa City, we're in District 4, and Ann Wood from Cedar Rapids is the regional coordinator. And in conjunction with that, in each of the 5 service areas, we also have an advisory committee, which is typically 5 to 7 people, volunteers from a variety of backgrounds, like I mentioned earlier, that meet every other month to give us an update about what's going on in their local communities. And we also discuss what's going on with the Office of Consumer Affairs and other things going on in the state. So it's a good kind of dialogue and exchange, and a way to really find out and keep up to date on what's going on in local communities.
Okay, and so there are the 5 DHS districts, which mean they average somewhere around 20 counties being covered, or
probably,
or is it a population base more? I can't remember how they set those
it's
up.
Definitely population based, Terry, because once you get out to western Iowa, District 1 is fairly large, and the smallest district is in southeast Iowa that basically extends from Dubuque south to the Keokuk area. So it's a little bit of both, but yeah, it's definitely larger in western Iowa where there's less population.
Okay. So after being around for just over a year and a half, has that given you a chance to kind of evaluate what you're doing, what things you need to expand as new, what things may not have been as important as you thought before, and what adjustments may you need to make with that?
Well, the one big thing that happened, Terry, which was just starting when we started in January last year, was Mental Health and Disability Services Redesign. And that really changed to a certain degree what we did, because once the session started this January, and we knew that they were going to push a redesign bill through, and we knew that this was probably going to be a reality, we became really involved with the work groups that had formed, and especially in public forums that were held last fall before the legislative session. And that was one thing that really grew out of a grassroots effort by advocacy from several organizations directly to DHS in a meeting back in last August. So that was one thing we didn't anticipate, Terry, is that we would kind of find that role within Redesign and really looking to get local communities involved. So we had started with 5 public forums, and those grew eventually into 10 public forums that almost 1,000 people attended. So that was one thing that changed, and it's a learning process as we go, and we're really trying to learn what's going on in local communities, especially areas where I hadn't been. And I'll give you one example, because I've been doing statewide work before, and one of those was southeast Iowa, especially south of the Quad Cities, going down into like Burlington, Keokuk, and that area. So that really gave me and the people I work with an opportunity to try to go out to these communities. But I guess one thing that we're trying to build on and continue to do is that community outreach. And as you know, with 99 counties and a lot of rural areas in Iowa, it's a challenge, but we've been building step by step to build those connections. So that's one thing we've been learning, is ways we can partner with other organizations and really try to network and use what resources we have to cover the state. So that's always an ongoing process.
Do you anticipate having those public forums again this year before the session?
Well, we had an advocacy meeting, Terry, with DHS last Thursday. So this is a series of monthly meetings that have been going on since August. And that was an agenda item we spoke about. And Rick Schultz, the division administrator, said that DHS would like to continue with the public forums. But he really didn't go farther than that. So I don't know if we will try to do that this fall. I guess we'll kind of see how everybody's schedule kind of unfolds, because there should be about 7 work groups meeting. And I would hope at least maybe in the fall or early next year, and of course we have to contend with the weather, you know, once we get past Thanksgiving. But I think there's definitely a desire. DHS has stated that, and definitely from people we've been talking to in local communities, and also people who attended the public forums really liked the experience. So I anticipate we'll be seeing more of those.
Yes, with all the research you have done and all the meetings held, what do you think the redesign will look like?
Yeah, so that's a really good question, Keith, because when we were starting these public forums, redesign was really new, and not a lot of people knew what was going on. So it was a great opportunity for people to educate themselves and try to understand. So to answer your question more specifically, Keith, some of the major sort of changes or initiatives with redesign are regionalization, because now we're a county-based system. So we as a state are in the process of forming regions, and there's some regions that have been formed or in the process of being formed. So that's something we'll see over the next year and a half. And another thing that's going to be changed is the county of legal residence, which has existed for quite a long time. So people would be tied to the county where they originally got services at. And then when people moved to a different county, that was always an issue about who would pay. So we're going to move to legal residence. So the idea is to really get rid of that kind of old archaic system where you might not have lived in this county that's paying for your services for 15 or 20 years, but you know, because of the way the system was set up. So if you lived in Johnson County and maybe you came from Iowa County, for example, and then Iowa County is still paying for your services even though you live here in Iowa City. So that's another change, Keith. Another thing is the idea of core services. So in combination, you have regions and core services. The idea is to make at least a certain number of services available throughout the state. Because the challenge has always been in more rural areas, people getting access to services, transportation, at least in the mental health field, the lack of psychiatrists, so service providers is definitely a challenge. So they're working on a kind of basket of core services that they're going to implement. And one of the big questions, and I think this has caused some consternation, Keith, and a lot of questions, is funding. And that's always been a big issue. And we've seen state budgets get cut over the last few years, and people are worried and concerned. And they hear about redesign, and some counties have seen waiting lists. So we're really trying to understand the funding issue, because when this legislation was passed and signed by the governor in the end of May, that was a policy bill. So that was like a blueprint or a vision of the redesigned system, but it wasn't a budget bill or an allocation of money. So that's one challenge that we're working on. And I think that's why the public forums really helped, because people could try to they could come to a better understanding, because it's definitely challenging and complicated and a work in progress.
Do we have any idea how many regions it'll finally look like?
I'm trying to remember, Keith, as far as the number of regions, if they were talking maybe a dozen. I'll give you an example of one region that's formed. Bob Lincoln is a CPC for Blackhawk, so up in Waterloo. He's had his own small region for at least the last several years, and it's been expanding. And right now, their region is going to be 17 counties, so that's fairly large, going all the way west to Fort Dodge. So we'll see probably within the next 6 months, we'll have a better idea. And they're also looking at and making rules for an exemption. So that was one of the compromises with the legislation, because of course, when this went through, people had a variety of sort of opinions what this would look like. So they're developing rules so a county could be a region in and of themselves. So that's kind of one twist we're going to be looking at too. We'll have regions, and there's a possibility we might have a few counties that might be their own region.
And I don't know how good a possibility that is, but a couple of the things that you'd mentioned about core services and the regions and the legal settlement issue. I know that's the whole legal settlement thing has really struck fear into the hearts of a lot of the larger counties. As I said, being on the MHDS Planning Council here, Johnson County, rightfully so, has a whole lot of concerns because the service-rich counties have become magnet counties. People from counties where services aren't available have relocated to Johnson County, and we have a significant number of those folks who currently have other counties footing their bills. And with this change that's going to be made, suddenly Johnson County is going to be responsible for those people. And that has a significant impact on budgets. And the whole regionalization thing, as you say, because Iowa has such a variety of county sizes and the city sizes, and that getting the different counties to want to go in together is very difficult, because, as I say, you have Johnson County, who could be their own region as far as being able to provide all the services necessary to be considered a region. Well, their questions are, okay, we could do that. So when you start looking at counties to go into with regions, and this has happened statewide, it's not just Johnson County, of course, you get the county who could provide all the services and be its own region, and their concern is, okay, how's the voting in this region going to go? You know, you get 6 or 8 counties together, we've got all the services, we've got the most amount of money invested. Is this going to be a one county, one vote system? If so, I don't think we want to play. And then you've got the littler counties who can't go it on their own because they don't have the services, they don't have the money, who are saying, wait a minute, because you're the biggest county, you get either an equal number of votes or one more vote than everybody else. That doesn't quite seem fair either. So there's some real negotiating and questions being asked about how that's going to be solved, because you know, there certainly is concern on both sides of the fence. And, you know, okay, what if a county has a waiting list and that kind of stuff as it's going in? You know, what impact is that going to have on the services that the entire region provides? And if a county has a deficit budget going in, well, how does that, you know, so there's an incredible amount of issues and concerns that are going on with that. And with the whole core services, you know, one of the other concerns is, of course, the magnet counties are those counties that are service rich. These are counties that provide more than the minimal services they're required to. They look at the folks in their county and the services they need and say, you know, hey, this would be, you know, providing transportation, whatever, would be a really good service for these folks, or, you know, for doing something else. And they're allowed to do that now. And unfortunately, it hasn't been determined 100% as far as I know now that they'll be able to continue to do that. Because counties right now choose the levy amount they're going to utilize between certain maximums from when their budgets were set back in the late 90s, and there's going to be a maximum amount that they're allowed to levy. So folks are also wondering, okay, you know, if you're in a county getting services that are in this enriched range that, you know, you've gotten used to, that really help you, what's going to happen if it means, you know, the core services are going to be the only services that are available in the entire state? You know, it's and it doesn't become a matter of raising the floor, but lowering the ceiling.
Yeah, those are some really great issues you brought up, Terry. And my short answer to that is this is definitely a work in progress, and we have this blueprint, but there's a lot of the structure we have to fill in. And that's what is important for us to realize and the legislators to realize, is even though this bill was signed into law a couple months ago, there's still a lot of work to be done. And just to address a couple of the things you had talked about, I know at the transition work group, which is one of the work groups that's meeting, they had their meeting on Tuesday, they talked about, I believe, this issue that legal settlement, which is, I think we all agree, is something that needs to be changed. But what you talked about, sort of the unintended consequence, or what happens as a result of that, is we've seen this migration to larger urban areas like Iowa City and Johnson County, or Des Moines and Polk County, where people have moved because they can get services there and because of the services they offered, but yet they have been getting paid by their county of origin, which is typically a rural county from the neighboring area. So what are those numbers going to look like? if we switch to county of residence, in Johnson County, how much more will Johnson County have to pay for people receiving services, because some of those people previously might have received money or funding from another rural county. So that's definitely an important thing. And another thing you mentioned, which relates back to county funding, is you had touched on the county property tax levy that I believe in 1996, when they set up this system, they had a hard dollar cap that they're working with. So the end result is we have counties all over the board for a variety of reasons where they're levying. Some of that's due to population growth. And Johnson County is a perfect example of that, you know, because they've actually increased definitely over the last 2 census periods. The population's increased. So that's one thing we're seeing, you know, in relation to population and that county property tax. And they're talking about a uniform equalized amount. So that idea of taking the ceiling and lowering it. What maybe can be changed? Can we have more flexibility with this system so we can meet regions and counties more where they're at? And another thing I'd like to comment on too is you're talking about services available. Iowa City is a unique place because you have the University of Iowa hospitals and clinics. So a vast majority of the psychiatrists in Iowa, well, a lot of them either get educated here or they stay in Johnson County and either do research or do direct service. So there's all kinds of factors at play here. And I think you did a really good job, especially from the Johnson County perspective, of laying out those questions and why we've got to be vigilant and work on this and educate people about what this process is going to be like.
It's another reason why people move here is because of the university, hospital, and clinic.
Right, so a lot of people either they have special care requirements, or the Iowa Care Plan originally was all through the University of Iowa, and just because it's a major college town and a large hospital campus, just for all those reasons, you know.
It attracts a lot of people.
And we talked a little about the levies and the hard dollar amounts. Briefly for folks watching, in 1996, Senate File SF-96 was passed, or was it 69?
Yep.
69 or 96?
No, it was
the number.
69.
At any rate, what that bill did was to have counties choose between the amount of their budget in the 1995 or 1996 fiscal years and their budget for their mental health disability services fund was capped at that amount.
Yeah.
Well, so what the growth factor that you were talking about did is all the new developments and buildings that were built after that time period were not allowed to be, the money from those you couldn't tax additionally. You know, so the money for the MHDS services, instead of that section of the tax levy going up, it was probably going down because there were more dollars to be taxed on, but there was a dollar amount that could be taxed. So, you know, if you had $1 million value and you were taxing 8% and it went up to $1.5 million, you know, the tax levy might actually go down to 4%.
Yeah.
And it's been that way since then.
So that's one thing we're dealing with, Terry, is the legacy of not only the tax structure and legal settlement combined, and it's like you have a pie, and the piece of the pie stayed the same, but the pie kept on getting bigger and bigger. And I moved away about 10 years ago, and anybody who has watched Johnson County over the last 10 years can just tell that the property tax base has just grown so much larger since that was initiated.
Well, yeah, and clearly, the need for services have grown. I mean, that's one of the reasons that the whole redesign is starting. There's more people
Yeah.
who need services. We're recognizing more and more that providing services and catching people in need earlier costs less money overall. You know, if we have the mental health services and can get outpatient treatment, it's a whole lot less than having somebody have to be hospitalized. The whole Iowa Care, if folks can get on that and have a doctor and go to a doctor for, you know, a $100 visit instead of going to the emergency room for a $700 or $800 visit, yeah, it all makes so much more sense. You know? Somebody pays for everything. It doesn't matter what if you don't have health insurance and you get seriously ill, you're still going to get treated because you're going to go to the emergency room.
Yeah.
You can't be turned down. The emergency room, you know, ends up taking a bite, or, you know, somebody who gets incarcerated. That whole thing.
Yeah. And that's a great example, Terry, is the prison system is now becoming basically the largest de facto sort of mental health institution or service provider. I was at Oakdale just up the road for a meeting last month, and they talked about that very issue that you pointed out. So that's what people have to understand, is the costs exist in the system. If it isn't the mental health system itself, it's within the hospitals or
Somebody
within
else.
corrections. You know, somebody's paying, and usually it's a lot more than it should be.
And, you know, it's kind of been my experience that the folks who use the different services are very well aware of how to access them. And, you know, unfortunately, and it used to be in, you know, several decades ago where somebody who was homeless or out of work, whatever, as the nip of fall came in the air, knew exactly what they had to do to get arrested,
Yeah.
to be jailed for the winter. And it's the same way with a lot of folks with mental health issues. They know just what they need to do to get the treatment they need and how long it's
we
going to
can
take.
only hope that the redesign program will take our county into consideration because of the influx of people. It's got to be flexible enough to account for that.
We're certainly hoping for that. Well, once again, we've run to the end of our time. I swear, I think every time we have you, we could
Yeah.
probably just almost do the never-ending show. But that's always good because it means that we're getting good questions and answers that come up. So thank you, Todd, for being with us again. Thank everybody out there. Have a good holiday weekend, guys.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.